if you are as excited as I am about Justin Simmons and Matt Judon coming down to the Falcons, hit that thumbs up button, and let's beat our like record for the month of August at 746 likes. I think we can get 1,000 likes for Simmons and Judon coming to Atlanta. The Atlanta Falcons just pulled off highway robbery, and it's a textbook case. And I don't think it's even close. Acquiring Matt Judon and Justin Simmons in the middle of August does not get more highway robbery than that. And all it cost the Falcons was a 2025 third-round draft pick, which we'll compare that to some other trades. And then Simmons, 1 year, $8 million contract. But let's start with Matthew Judon, who came over from New England for that third-round draft pick, and he was holding in with the Patriots, seeking some sort of change to his contract. It appears that he is okay with playing out the rest of his deal with the Falcons as scheduled, so Atlanta's not even on the hook to add more money to his deal, and all they do is pick up a really good Pro Bowl pass rusher. Yeah, what's not to like? Now, if you're a little upset with it being a third-round draft pick, I won't lie. It was a little bit more than what I projected, but let's remind ourselves, the Falcons' third-round draft picks in the last decade, they're not missing out on some future Pro Bowler, most likely. I mean, it's too early to grade Trice or Harrison, but Desmond Ridder was a flop. Jalen Mayfield was an absolute failure. Matt Hennessy wasn't really a consistent starter. I mean, just go down the list here. The best would be Tevin Coleman, a backup running back, you could argue. Maybe Austin Hooper. Yeah, I don't think the Falcons are going to lose too much sleep over missing out on the opportunity to draft Jalen Mayfield in the third round this year. But now let's talk about how this stacks up against other trades that went down for Pro Bowl players or Pro Bowl caliber players in the month of August. I had to go all the way back to August 2020 to find the last time a Pro Bowler was traded this close to the start of the regular season, when Yannick Ngakoue went from the Jags to the Vikings for more than a third-round draft pick, a second and a fifth. How about Jadeveon Clowney going from the Texans to the Seahawks for a third-rounder and two players? Atlanta didn't give up a single player at all. And then maybe the biggest trade of all was Laramie Tunsil to the Dolphins, from the Dolphins to the Texans for 2 firsts and a second-round draft pick. So after looking over Atlanta's last decade of third-round picks and what other teams gave up for Pro Bowl caliber guys at this point in the NFL calendar, I'm very much okay with a third-round draft pick going to New England. Now let's look at the resume of Matthew Judon. I mean, 2 out of the last 3 seasons, 12-plus sacks. If he didn't have a torn pec in 2023, he was on pace for another double-digit sack season, 4 sacks in 4 games played. So from a resume standpoint, like a player makeup, yeah, Matthew Judon to me checks the box of good player with a big fat black Sharpie. So all over Matthew Judon coming to the Falcons. But if you want more evidence of this being highway robbery, I've got that coming up for you in just a second. But first, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Game Time. If you love summer baseball and want to catch a Braves game before the season wraps up or a Falcons preseason game, you're going to want to give Game Time a shot. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. Now, one thing I really like about Game Time is they offer the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you the difference of 110%. So download the Game Time app today and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, just to kind of put a cherry on top for this Matthew Judon highway robbery trade, if Judon played his entire career with the Falcons, he'd be third in franchise history in sacks. He'd be 2 sacks behind John Abraham, the best pass rusher by a country mile in this franchise's history in the 21st century. How about take it one step further? take Judon's stats since he entered the league, he'd have the same amount as Atlanta's second and third leaders in sacks going back to 2016. This isn't even close. I don't think Falcons fans are truly are truly going to understand the magnitude that they just picked up in a bona fide perennial Pro Bowl pass rusher like Matthew Judon. This was the final puzzle piece for Raheem Morris. Obviously, the Falcons wanted to address quarterback long-term and short-term with Cousins and Penix, so they couldn't use a ton of money in free agency or a first-round draft pick on an edge rusher, so they went a little bit on the skinny margarita side, hoping for cheaper and later draft picks to pan out, and now they decide, you know what, let's not mess around. If we've got Kirk Cousins under contract for the next 3 to 4 years, we should maximize every single season of his play by getting a true superstar pass rusher like Matt Judon. Now, before we talk about Justin Simmons and that edition of Highway Robbery, help us catch up and take down Saints Now in subscribers for the month of August. We had beaten the Saints channel here at Chat Sports in subs every single month this year up until July. Now we're on pace to lose back-to-back months. Flukes happen, and I can chalk that up to being a fluke in July, but we're not going to make it a pattern. Hit the sub button down below if you want to go 2-0 against the Aints this year. Justin Simmons might be the most egregious case of highway robbery, and I thought that would go to Matthew Judon after even convincing myself over the last couple of minutes. But he comes over from Denver after being a cap casualty because the Broncos released Russell Wilson, $85 million dead cap hit. They had to move on from some more expensive players like Simmons, and he lands in Atlanta on a 1-year, $8 million contract. Judon and Simmons spoke to the media this morning in Atlanta, and Josh Kendall tweeted this out, and I thought you'd want to see it. Falcon safety Justin Simmons. I was already in talks, and when the Judon trade happened, I pretty much called my agent and said, we've got to get this thing done. Terry Fontenot pulled off a true 2-for-1 special. By trading for Matthew Judon, he got Justin Simmons on board with the direction this team was headed for 2024. And then Simmons shared about having dinner with a couple of premier players on this Falcons defense like Grady Jarrett and Jesse Bates, Terry Fontenot. And the number one thing that was coming up in conversation at this dinner, talking about the postseason for 2024, the true end goal for this season. How can you not be romantic about adding Justin Simmons and Matthew Judon when you hear stuff like that? But now for the stats. Look at the last 2 years combined. Total takeaways, interceptions, and forced fumbles. Atlanta has 2 tied for first in Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons. Now, I love to find stats like this, and I can't really figure out how to find a way to search if a team has ever had 2 players in 2 consecutive seasons tied for first in takeaways, but I'm prepared to go out on a limb and say this might be a first in NFL history. To have 2 guys tied for first in takeaways in any 2-year stretch on the same roster, that just doesn't seem possible. The Falcons have playmakers on offense and now defense. This secondary is elite. Look at the front 5 to the back for the Falcons. You got Matthew Judon, David Onyemata, Grady Jarrett. Like 3 Pro Bowl players right there. Now your linebackers. I mean, this might be the most unsung group of the entire roster. Caden Ellis, awesome. Troy Anderson, incredible athlete. Nate Landman, one of the most productive players on the Falcons all of last season, and he's coming off the bench for the Falcons. And then the secondary. Terrell, one of the most underappreciated cornerbacks in football. Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons. I don't need to say anything more about them. We know their resume. We know they're qualified for the job. They're overqualified, and they are on the same team together. This is a fantasy football lineup. It is ridiculous what the Falcons were able to acquire in a 48-hour span this close to the start of the regular season for that little. 6 Pro Bowls, 4 from Judon, 2 from Simmons in 48 hours in the middle of August. I don't think any team in NFL history has ever added 6 Pro Bowls in the middle of August via trade and free agency. It's unprecedented what the Falcons have done. Terry Fontenot got in the lab, working the phones, and he turned this defense around right before the clock struck midnight. Unbelievable. So to wrap up the video, let's keep the vibes high. Who's got more wins coming for them this season? I want to see only ATLs in the chat for the Falcons. No way the Saints finish with more wins than the Falcons. I'll bet my paycheck on it. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave us a comment, a like, and we'll catch up with you all on another edition of Falcons Today.